I texted somebody and was like, what are you up to today? No, he was like, what are you up to today? And I was like, I'm okay, I'm just chilling. And he was like, were you born in a tiny chair or did you have some sort of accident? First of all, no one is born into their mobility device. I didn't even bother responding. I just let it be what it was. Oh, this one's my favorite. So it was 6 a.m. on a Sunday a few months ago. I was horny and looking for more morning dick because I was like, maybe people are up at 6 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I was like, all right, well, I'll just go on Grindr and see. So somebody was like, you look fucking retarded. Who the fuck wants to hook up with a cripple? You don't even look human, ugly fucker. And I just, okay. At 6:22 a.m. on a Sunday, that's what you're sending to a person. Yeah. We don't talk about sexuality and disability at all in queer spaces or hetero spaces. We don't really talk about disability at all because people are afraid of disability because historically disabled people have been treated as asexual, as the other, as less than. If you really start looking at the way disabled people are treated on apps or in our day-to-day worlds, trying to access dating and sexuality and our sexual selves, we are constantly denied and turned away and told we're not worthy of these expressions of sexuality. And so they never realize that a disabled person can be sexy. They never realize a disabled person can be sexual. They never realize a disabled person could make them feel pleasure. That's what I get all the time in my personal life. And instead I'm like, yeah, I'm upset about it, but I want to use my platform as a sex educator and as a disability consultant to be like, let's bring these two things together in a not necessarily a positive or negative way, but a real way. We're all looking for some kind of relationship, whether it's friendship, whether it's a romantic thing. We all want connection. And one of the ways that I'm learning about connection is by working with sex workers and working with, people who are paid to do this. You still get to connect. In those 2 hours, I get to be as slutty, as sexual as I want in a safe, consensual environment with somebody who's learning about disability and who's willing to do all that with me in a safe environment. How did you feel when I hit you up to be like, hey, wanna do this as part of your job?
I was like interested to see how it would go, just like how I am with like all the different kinds of, I think it's just like the whole conversation we had beforehand, just talking like the negotiations, it was just something like was a learning curve for me. It was like a way that I'd never really experienced before. Like the first time one of my sessions that I have somebody who had a disability, who I was in a wheelchair, I didn't know until I actually showed up.
Oh wow.
To the place. I told you that. So like all he said is just, when I messaged him, he was like, hey, so I just have a little trouble walking. So then it was just like when I showed up, it was a worker who answered the door.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
It was like a guy answers the door wearing scrubs, and I'm just like, you can walk, okay? I think. I'm like, where am I? Like, and then I saw the scrubs. I'm like, oh, hold on a second. He's like, and then he's just like, oh, come this way, and then he goes into the room.
Wow, I wonder what the conversation the guy had with his worker about you coming over. Like,
yeah, and the worker was super just like, cool, here he is, kind of thing, and I was just like, oh, okay, cool. But like with anything or any client or any experience or session that I have, it's just like, you just tune into the person and what they want to express. So it's not just about that. It's about essentially helping people understand how they express intimacy as well. Like it's all connected.
Intimacy as a disabled person is so much better when there's possibility but not expectation.
Yes.
So I don't expect anything to happen, but it's nice to know that in this space with you, if I wanted to like touch your arm or be intimate in that hour, in that 2-hour session, I can do that.
I think those are those sessions where I'm like, I think are so beautiful, because the thing is just like, however you are in your body. So whether that's you're just like, I'm feeling, and of course, which is completely valid and it makes a lot of sense why you would feel, like, when you would feel anger or feel frustration, right? But the thing is like, to able to hold that space for you is just as important as to hold that space for you when you're coming. You know what I mean? Because they're both types of release.
And I wish we could see more of that on film and like porn and in OnlyFans. And in the way like gay men consume media, I wish we could not only see more disabled bodies, more brown bodies, more like other bodies, but also like, can we see a porn scene where they don't, nothing happens and they're just intimate for an hour? Like, I'd watch that. Where's that?
I think sometimes what happens with sex is just like there's so much power given to that, just, you know, through porn, through different forms of media in which, like, you know, you exalt this sort of type of a way of having sex. But unfortunately, it's like when we're growing up and we're seeing that, like for me, like I never saw I only saw white bodies. So the thing is just like I already felt weird about my body.
I
like,
still only see white bodies.
Yeah, like, exactly. But that's what I mean. Like it's just like kind of like that sense of just like you grow up and you're like, okay, well, I feel like weird like having sex because like it's just like you just take it on. You don't consciously know
it. Much like you were saying how all you saw was white bodies. I too only saw white bodies. And I saw able-bodied men, so I believed that the only way to fuck is with another able-bodied person. And so, like, even now, with all my social justice work and all the work I do as a consultant, if you were to show me the hottest guy in a wheelchair and the able-bodied porn star, I would probably subconsciously pick the able-bodied porn star, and I would say, like, oh, well, it's easier because he can lift me, and so then, like, but that's a bias, too, that I have, and so I understand that feeling of, like, if I saw myself or somebody like myself, while I would support it theoretically, practically I'd still say no because it's so deeply ingrained. I don't see myself as this like sexy portrayal. I put that on as a kind of an armor for myself to feel safe when I'm going into queer environments where I don't have a space. And I've built a career out of like, let's talk about sex. And in order for people to pay attention to me, I have to be outspoken, brash. I have to talk about blowjobs and like all the great fucking that I can do. But really, underneath all of that is just a shy kid that wants somebody to pay attention to him. Like, there's really two sides of me. And so when I'm with somebody, even just sexually, I get really attached because I want them to stick around. One of the things I'm really interested in talking about is disability and sexuality in queer spaces and ableism in the LGBTQ community. I'm really interested in talking to other disabled people about their experiences being disabled in LGBTQ and talking to them about what that feels like for them and all the things they have to go through just to be seen within this community. How does hooking up as a lesbian identified person in our community with a disability, how does that manifest for you?
I think it's more about like dating rather than hooking up. It seems to me that there's like less of a hookup culture, or maybe I'm just not tapped into it.
Can you share kind of some of the stuff that you navigate as a disabled person trying to?
Yeah, I think like finding a venue or whatever to like go on a date can be challenging because it's like you have to make sure that it's queer positive. You have to make sure that it's accessible. You have to make sure that like not just that it's accessible, but also the bathroom's accessible because if you're having a coffee, then I might need to pee.
Yeah.
And then the anxiety of that or whatever, right?
Yeah. No.
And that's on top of the anxiety of like, what are people going to think about me using a walker? Or like, what are people going to like, are they going to, I get a lot of like, oh, you're amazing. I'm going to be friends with you. And then like, but like, I don't actually want to date you. And so I have all the friends. Like, I have
cool.
a shit ton of friends. Like,
I wanted
sweet.
to get with you. Thanks so much. But like, no, you talk a lot about how queer women are desexualized and then queer disabled women are desexualized even more.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that and how that manifests for you?
Yeah, I think, yeah, so if we just like think on a whole about how like sexism is at play in society and how women have any agency, but then within like queer women culture or lesbian culture, it's there is a lot of like sexualization, but it's all like able-bodied, attractive women, like
Cis, yeah.
Yeah. But then when we look at like disabled queer women, either like we just don't exist and are not thought about, or we're only existing in like spaces that are completely desexualized.
It always kind of hurts my heart a little bit to hear that, because you and I have talked about this so much.
Yeah.
Like, why I love talking to you so much, because we can text each other and be like, oh, I'm having a shitty queer ableism day, and I want to talk about blah. And so I love that, but it's so frustrating because I feel like we continually echo the same thing. Like, I'd love to get a text from either one of us. It's like, hey, I met somebody who wasn't an ableist today. Like, that's...
Yeah, it's like monumental or something, instead of our lives just being like, people respect us and are nice to us.
But nobody wants to fuck us.
Yeah.
And so many people have talked about this. Like, I wish we could see the walker and the wheelchair and the cane as something that is empowering and sexy. And
exactly.
And that's... I struggle with that, because I will totally tokenize myself to get in the door.
Yeah.
Both the sexual doors and professional doors, because I know that's how I can make money, is I can say, let me be you haven't featured a disabled guy in your magazine? Great, I'll be your first.
Yeah.
You haven't fucked the disabled guy? Cool.
I commend you on that, but I think let's move away from tokenism and move toward like acceptance and community and celebrating. Yeah.
I think non-disabled people are afraid to talk about sex and disability because it might be them one day. Not only will it might be them, it will be them one day when disability becomes a part of their life, be that through old age, an accident. How does a non-disabled person deal with that? That's terrifying to them. Whereas disabled people who are choosing to be sexual are saying, we're here, like, when is it going to be our turn? We can scream from all the rooftops and say, hey, we're disabled and sexual, but nobody seems to care, because for the majority, it doesn't affect them. And when it does, all of a sudden their eyes are open and like, wow, I never realized this. And it's like, well, but we've been telling you, please pay attention.